Good morning. Well, she's gone. She resigns. It is an historic day. Theresa May has resigned on the steps of Downing Street within the past few minutes.
It was an emotional speech at the end of which Mrs May broke down in tears. She said she'd been proud to be the second female British Prime Minister, but she thinks she certainly won't be the last.
She'll stand down as Conservative Party leader in 2 weeks' time. That's going to be Friday, June the 7th, and then a leadership contest will begin straight away. This was her just 15 minutes ago on the steps of Downing Street.
Ever since I first stepped through the door behind me as Prime Minister, I have striven to make the United Kingdom a country that works not just for a privileged few, but for everyone, and to honour the result of the EU referendum. Back in 2016, we gave the British people a choice. Against all predictions, the British people voted to leave the European Union. I feel as certain today as I did 3 years ago that in a democracy, if you give people a choice, you have a duty to implement what they decide. So I am today announcing that I will resign as leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party on Friday the 7th of June, so that a successor can be chosen. It is and will always remain a matter of deep regret to me that I have not been able to deliver Brexit. Our politics may be under strain, but there is so much that is good about this country. So much to be proud of, so much to be optimistic about. I will shortly leave the job that it has been the honour of my life to hold. The second female Prime Minister, but certainly not the last. I do so with no ill will, but with enormous and enduring gratitude to have had the opportunity to serve the country I love.
OK, well, certainly she was emotional. It may have been emotional for a lot of you to watch that in one way or the other. What happens now? Live now to number 10. ITN's political editor, Robert Peston, is there. I thought, Robert, it was classic Theresa May basically saying, I did my bit, but it was those pesky MPs that spoilt it all.
Well, she pointed out how challenging delivering Brexit has been, and, frankly, what's done for her is the fact that the one big job she was set, which was to take us out of the European Union, she has not delivered on. So one thing she didn't make reference to is that we had European parliamentary elections yesterday. Tory party are likely to come 4th or 5th in those elections. So I'm afraid her position became unsustainable. A majority of her MPs very clearly wanted her out, and she's attempted to keep a little bit of dignity by delaying the moment of her resignation by 2 weeks so that she can meet President Trump in 10 days' time. He's here on a state visit without the backdrop of those vying to take over from her, running their campaigns. Those campaigns will start the following week. But even so, even though there's another 2 weeks for her to remain as Tory leader, nonetheless, she has sealed her own fate, and I've never actually seen anything quite like what happened at the end of that address that she just gave to the nation. She broke down in tears. None of us have ever seen a Prime Minister break down in that way. Quite extraordinary.
Sorry for her at that point, Peston. Did you feel sorry for her at that point? It was very emotional and she did break down. She looked very tired. I'm sure she hasn't had much sleep. Did you have any amount of sympathy for her?
Look, I'm sure the whole nation feels sympathy for her. She has, in many ways, been the most resolute individual in that place, 10 Downing Street, that any of us have witnessed, in the sense that she has been under attack from her own MPs, from her ministers, from the opposition, from people outside Parliament, relentlessly for months because of their anger.
It's not their fault. That's her
deliver.
fault, isn't it? I mean, that's whose fault is that? I'm saying. I mean, it all went wrong. She called that election.
Sure. No, Of course, I'm not trying to say this wasn't a disaster of her own making. She has made, many people would say, a whole series of very serious strategic errors, as you say, from calling that general election in 2017, which she did not have to call, barely showing the enormous strain that she must have been under on her face. Today she couldn't take it any longer and she broke down. And I'm simply saying most humans across the country, if you've got any sympathy, will have just felt, whatever you feel about her as a politician, a twinge of sympathy.
Robert, her withdrawal agreement, is it now dead?
Yeah, look, I think it is inconceivable that her version of Brexit will be the version of Brexit that is pushed through. The big issue really now is whether we will get a much harder form of Brexit or indeed no Brexit at all. In my view, the debate is now going to crystallise between something that most people characterise as a no-deal Brexit and a referendum. I would imagine that the most likely candidate to take over from her is Boris Johnson. He will, if he does take over as Prime Minister, he will then go to Brussels and say withdraw, take out the so-called backstop, this very controversial plan to keep open the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, which Brexiters hate, which the Northern Ireland's DUP hates. He will go to Brussels and he will ask EU leaders to withdraw it from the deal to take us out of the EU. They will say no. At that point, he will say, well, we're leaving without a deal. He will not be able to get a no-deal Brexit ratified by the House of Commons. In my view, at that point, we are facing a general election, and we will face a general election between a Tory party wedded to a harder no-deal form of Brexit and a Labour Party, which I think by that point will almost certainly be in favour of a referendum. So, you know, strap yourself in. We're going to get a Tory leadership election first, and then, in my view, we will get a general election in October or November.
You know, like many people, you think, you know, Boris has a very good chance here. But it's a fascinating situation, Robert, where you would have both Boris and Jeremy Corbyn popular with the membership, but not so popular within their own parliamentary parties.
Well, let's be absolutely clear. Although I think Boris Johnson is likely to emerge the winner, as you point out, there is a significant number of his own MPs who detest him, who will be desperately trying to rally around another candidate. But the membership loves him. If he gets through the first round of MPs' votes and he gets through to the runoff with the membership, I think it is inevitable that he will win. You are correct that at that point there will be Tory MPs who will feel they cannot support him, and they certainly will not want to support his preferred version of a hard Brexit. That is one of the reasons why I anticipate there will be a general election. Actually, more or less whoever becomes Tory leader, but particularly if he becomes Tory leader, because he will struggle to command a majority in the House of Commons.
Yeah. Robert, really appreciate your take on an historic and a very, very busy day. Perhaps we'll talk before the end of the programme. Thank you very much indeed. Robert Peston there.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Did you feel sorry for her when she broke down?
No. And I'll tell you why. I didn't, and it's nothing party political, I'm going to say, but I thought it was typical Theresa May. She made it all about her, and she talked about Grenfell, where I would say, Grenfell, what have you done for those people? If I had been Prime Minister, I would have set up a park full of static caravans. I would have put them in. I would have had these people homed in the sort of lodges that we give away on this programme. Instead of what is happening there with people with that. I think she talks like a preacher. Her father was a preacher.
I thought it was a very long resignation speech, but I could not help but feel for her at that moment when her voice broke and she said, you know, that's a country that I'm proud of.
But it is all, but you see, you know, we elect people to carry out our will.
Yeah.
But she's just saying, basically, you know, you've got rid of me even though I'm brilliant. So she just stood there and told us how brilliant she was. Was she really? And
But
again,
most
I
of them
say
do that,
I'm not
don't
making
they? They never stand and say, I've been an utter failure, so I've got to go now.
That is, well, it's obvious. She's been the worst Prime Minister maybe this country has ever had. So stop trying to tell us everything different.
It's not a great legacy, is it, to go written in the history books?
Well, I think the thing is, I don't wish to be party political about that, because actually I don't vote for any of them. I'm as cynical about all of them, whatever hue there is. But yes, would I be emotional if I was resigning? Yes, I probably would be. But all of this, as Robert Peston said, is trouble of her own making. She doesn't listen to people. Go, go, go. Are you moved by this? We're going to play this again. And then it's going to be the subject of our phone in today.
Let's have another look at that very emotional moment outside Downing Street.
I do so with no ill will, but with enormous and enduring gratitude to have had the opportunity to serve the country I love.
Wow. Do you feel sorry for her?
From a woman who I hear politically takes no advice, has no connection with the backbenches, does not listen to other people, and I've heard that from professional after professional advisor. So it's just interesting. It's interesting.